It was about 3 months after the Operation Jormungand. I received a confidential letter from Major Claire. It was an invitation to Valfane Palace to take care of some unfinished business. Could you step out for a moment? Understood. This is Chancellor Osborne's... This is my father's office. Still just doesn't feel like this is real. The reality may never set in. Following the war, we got most of what he left in his will to the rightful recipients under the table. That being said, it's not much as if he left much behind at all. Apparently, he even disposed of a number of his personal belongings before the war. Did he now? That's just like him, isn't it? But if that's the case, then what was the item you mentioned you wanted to give me in your letter? Yes, in truth, it's an item I found in the ashes of his fireplace while sorting out the rest of the items. This is... Considering when and where we found it, it was probably caught between the pages of his memoir. Unfortunately, all of his memories were completely burned beyond saving. But I think that at least this one item is... Please accept it, Reed. Thank you, Your Majesty. Having this alone is more than enough for me. That he cherished this photograph until the end. I think that's all I need from him. I see. Goodness, but to think he also had a son by his own blood. Following the war, it was difficult to publicly mourn the very same Chancellor who was responsible for it. But that tomb he built for his wife on the site of his former mansion, it seems you've had his name engraved on it, yes? Yes, I was in the area thanks to an activity for the branch campus and decided to take advantage of the opportunity. I thought it would be nice if he could rest peacefully in the suburbs with my mother. Osborne was both a close friend of mine and a great man of the Empire. Let us visit him together sometime. The tomb with the steel maiden and crossbell as well. Yes, please feel free to ask me whenever you'd like. I'm sure it would make the two of them very happy. Although I guess in saying that I make it sound like we were really close, but I never actually got the chance to get to know him. Well, if you think you hardly knew him, then surely I'm no better. As you only knew bits of your true father, I only knew bits of the true Chancellor Osborne. A shame, I wish I'd gotten to know him a bit better myself. Now the twilight is over and this great ordeal of our history has passed. Our job is not to dwell on the past, but to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. Yes, well said, Your Highness. Memories of a Fiery Gaze. Man, no matter how many times I look at it, there's still something that feels off about it. I definitely saw a scene similar to this when I used that lunar nether mirror, but still just can't imagine him making this sort of face. Well, I guess that's just more proof that I never truly knew him. Regardless, I'd like to clean this photo up a bit and take good care of it. For now though, I have an early day tomorrow. I'd best be getting to bed early. Huh? On that fated day, I chose to surrender my flesh and spirit to the Black Knight. Yet it was by my own will that I decided to bring this empire to ruination. To free this land from the abominable curse. A man who would choose to destroy the world in which his loved ones reside can hardly be considered human. Therefore, I pledged to become a man of blood and iron, one who would leap this world into strife. Let my legacy be recorded here to serve as proof that I am in fact myself. In order to call forth the twilight, I had to arrange a number of pieces on the board, myself included. It was around that time that I met a young boy blessed with a special foresight. Oddly, it was the son of Commander Arundel, a boy named Lecter. He'd taken all of the guilt for his father's sins onto himself, and now he was being forced into silence by his father's co-conspirators. I chose to give him a place to live in the role of a piece, and inspired him with a reason to live in the form of revenge. Perhaps the compassion I was displaying was something I had ought to dispose of, but maybe this was my way of trying to replace the son I'd given up. It seemed that Commander Arundel had been egged on by the Black Knight as well, but why would his son be forced to shoulder the sins of his father? I didn't know if his foresight granted him the ability to see all the way to the demise I had planned, but with an intrigued look on his face, Lecter accepted my invitation. It was around the time that I became Chancellor of the Imperial Government. When I was undergoing negotiations with the four great houses, I came across an interesting young man. Rufus Albrea, a young man wise beyond his years, yet that seemed still vacant and directionless in his ambitions. Calling me his father, he challenged himself to try and surpass me, an effort to prove the worth of his own existence. It felt like an encounter with fate to be called father again. In any case, I was pleased to see someone trying to overcome me. I look forward to him demonstrating that he was more than just one of my pieces on the chessboard that would bend to the will of the curse. I didn't think he'd be satisfied by merely being able to call himself an Ironblood, but I was certain that when he finally found the answer he was searching for, he had the potential to become a harbinger of a new era for this world. Before I'd even noticed, my first 2 years as the Chancellor had passed. With Rufus and Lecter hard at work, rumors of the Ironblood's existence began to circulate. Meanwhile, I received a letter about Reverie, a friend of mine from when I attended Thor's. There had been an undoubtedly suspicious accident, figuring that the Black Knight's influence may be involved. I went to the city to clean up matters myself. It was there that I met his daughter, Reverie. From her I discovered perhaps another case of the curse toying with the fates of the people of Erebonia. In the wake of such a tragedy, she developed a unique talent that can be called enhanced cognition. I decided to leave the cleanup to her. Despite being wounded, the girl showed the spirit and resolved to stand up to her own destiny. Figuring this too must be fate, I decided to invite her to one of my children as well. I decided the least I could do for my deceased friend was to watch over his daughter and see what she could make of herself until the advent of the demise. Then another unexpected meeting occurred around the time that I'd gone to Jurai to try negotiating about annexation with the mayor. As if she waited for just the right time to appear, I met a nostalgic face. That of my old silver friend. I heard that she was now going by the name of Steel, and she was operating behind the scenes as part of the society. Yet, as we spoke, I felt that she was no different from how she had been back then, seeming nervous for my well-being. With Jurai annexed, one could say that the seeds of the curse had been sown and the stage for the rivalry was set. When I told her such, she left without saying much else. I should have commended her for her hard work, yet we both maintained our usual cold exteriors and couldn't get our true feelings across. Eventually, another child joined the Ironbloods. Milliam Orion, also known as OC-73, a nearly perfected homunculus. It seemed in the blink of an eye that the young girl, the embodiment of innocence, developed proper emotion and began to grow up. Milliam had something that I certainly never could have provided to the other Ironbloods. As Claire and Lecter spent time with her, I could see both their expressions and their hearts began to soften. If she could help those children recover any of those life's richness that they'd lost to the whims of the curse, I'd be overjoyed. And yet, I understood that this too was part of the Black Knight's plan, as she too existed merely to become a sword that could bring about the end. This was but one more sin I had to bear upon a mountain of others. Surely I was bound to fall to Gehenna along with Ishmelga. Shortly after, I caught wind of the prince's involvement in the Liberal incident. His triumphant return on the Kingdom of Liberals sale became the front page story of every newspaper. Just before His Highness was to depart from Liberal, I went to give him my regards. Indeed, Prince Oliver was an incredible man who far exceeded my expectations. One could say that, as we faced each other, the sleeping lion of the Empire had been awakened. On one side there was myself, who had resolved to throw the world into strife, and on the other side there was a young prince, searching for an elusive third way. Even if he was a hindrance to my ambitions of calling forth the twilight, facing him was a thrill like no other. If the two of us were to face off, it wouldn't end until one had devoured the other whole. As I set my machines for crossbow into motion, I eagerly awaited his next move. A group of students from Thor's military academy had come to the Imperial capital for a field study. Special Operations Class 7. I spotted a familiar face among their number. I had already heard about it from Teo and Claire, but his face displayed a kindness, a caring for others. It was just like his mother's. He seemed wrapped up in all sorts of problems, but more importantly, he seemed to have grown up strong and healthy. However, it was clear that he was heavily burdened by the curse. The heart beating and stress was Ismelga's, my own. As the source of the curse, I couldn't even begin to guess how powerful its influence was. Having to bear such a heavy burden, how could my beloved Kasha, now residing with the goddess, possibly feel about this? However, if he couldn't control himself now, he would never survive the days that were to come. I prayed he would continue to grow in this brief time we had left before the twilight. Crow looking really cool. On October 30th, Crossbell declared itself an independent nation and attacked the Grelia fortress, resulting in its disappearance. In response, the Empire declared war, just as it was written in Black Records. With everything set, he finally entered the stage. Crow Armbrust, the grandson of Jurai's former mayor Armbrust, apparently left alone after the death of his grandmother, he burned with rage until he became an embodiment of carnage. Everything was proceeding just as I'd planned, but I felt that I was starting to see the true potential that people held. And if we're to speak such potential, that young man, Schwarzer, became Valamar's Awakener. As the Erebonian Civil War got into full swing, the Black Knight became even stronger. Entrusted with the Ashen Knight, he was sure to do well, but if his resolve were weak, he would surely meet his end. I don't believe that I was merely thrusting a cruel fate upon my son. Only he can control the direction that his life takes. I wanted him to show me that he has the power to combat true destiny itself. Finally, on July 18th, the Growl of Erebos manifested. Thinking he'd repaired a sabotaged airship, Prince Oliver rushed to the scene to lend his aid. There, in the Empire's night sky, he and the courageous were blown apart. A human life is something that fate will easily cast aside, regardless of its weight to the world. He should have been no exception. It seemed that at the time that he too had succumbed to that cruel fate. I thought that perhaps after the twilight he'd be a useful asset in rebuilding the nation. I felt true remorse for his loss. Thus, with the crimson wings of hope shattered, the sword of the end was swung. Green was overcome by the curse, becoming a sacrifice. Seeing Milliam die before his very eyes, he flew into rage. He completely lost himself to the curse. I thought for sure that he, who'd managed to keep the curse at bay until then, would surely have been able to control himself. On the other hand, I felt that perhaps he was lucky to have been transformed into a demon. By the time he regained his senses, I, along with the curse, may have already been eradicated. If nothing else, I hope he could rest until it was time for the rivalry to reach its climax. September 1st. Today marks the beginning of Operation Jormungand as well as the long-awaited beginning of the rivalry. Reen, who should have been at the bottom of despair, has risen once more to raise his blade against me. The curse has reached its peak, and yet he's continued to grow and persevere. He's had help from many friends and comrades, but that's not at all. I can't help but wonder where he would be now had his father stayed by his side to watch over him. Yeah, that's what it seems like. No, this is too unlike me. Perhaps I still not hardened myself enough. I cannot allow myself to waver after coming this far. In the event that the curse should consume me entirely, my son will be forced to take it in my stead. If I'm truly prepared to fulfill my role, then it is both my first and final duty as his father to do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. I don't believe that I live in a world where miracles can occur. But if by some chance even the prayers of a wretch like myself could reach the goddess, then I beg of you. Please bless Reen with a bright future. That just now. Was that all a dream? Oh, my photo on the wall is Laura. Maybe it was just a normal dream, but I want to believe it was real. You carried everything on your own. You always put everyone else's happiness ahead of your own. Maybe it's weird for me to say it, but I really am his son. At a minimum, I should do more to pay respect to my parents as their son. Yes, that's right. This life given to me by my father, saved by my friends. From now on, I swear I'll do all I can to honor you as your son every day. In everything I do. I don't think I can ever be forgiven for taking this long to realize it, but... Morning, Kurt. Isn't it so nice out today? I don't think I'll ever be a morning person. Good morning, Yuna, Altina. You see Musi and Asher here as well. I had so many sweets yesterday. I need to make sure my body stays in perfect shape for Instructor Reen. I knew I shouldn't have come along. Why am I stuck here wasting time with you four again? That's great, Ash. Well, you can all say whatever you want while we're running. Come on, let's go. Well then, guess I should get going too. Aw. That's adorable. The family that never was. Memories of a fiery gaze. End. So what do we get from this?